The old man collapsed on the concrete, his trembling hands shielding his weary body. The bikers laughed with satisfaction, treating the act like cheap entertainment. No one around intervened. Only cold indifference surrounded him, but they had no idea. Just 60 minutes later, the roar of Special Forces vehicles would tear through that silence. Sam Whitmore adjusted his faded veteran's cap as he pulled his 1970 Ford F-100 pickup into the gas station. The July heat shimmered off the cracked asphalt like ghostly fire, and the air tasted of rubber and gasoline. At 80, Sam moved slowly, not from fear, but from wounds earned decades ago in jungles, whose names most Americans couldn't pronounce, and most had long since forgotten. The truck, like Sam, had seen better days. Its once bright blue paint had faded into a ghostly gray in places, and rust had claimed territory along the wheel wells like creeping vines. But it ran. Loud, stubborn, dependable, just like the man who had driven it since Vietnam. Sam slid. From the driver's seat, his left knee, a casualty of shrapnel back in '71, sending a jolt of pain through his body. He paused, let the ache settle, then reached into his worn leather wallet. His veteran's discount card, cracked but still legible, was tucked behind his driver's license, and a yellowed photo of men long gone. Near the air pump, 5 bikers lounged like vultures against their gleaming motorcycles. Leather vests, tattoos, sunglasses, youth. Not the kind earned through discipline or sacrifice, but ink bought on whims. They watched Sam, eyes alive with mischief or maybe something darker, restlessness often disguised cruelty. "Check out Grandpa's rust bucket," one called out, his voice carrying over the empty lot. "Belong in a museum." Sam didn't flinch. He'd stood still under enemy fire. Words were little more than buzzing flies. Inside the convenience store, the young cashier didn't even glance up from her phone as Sam paid for a bottle of water and $20 of gas. He didn't mind. Sometimes it was easier to be invisible, when your memories screamed louder than any siren. Back at the pump, he unscrewed the cap with fingers that had once disarmed landmines and saved lives. Now they trembled with age, or maybe it was something deeper, exhaustion from a lifetime of holding things together. He didn't hear the biker approach until a shadow fell beside him. "That thing even pass inspection?" the biker said, his smirk audible in his voice. He ran a finger along the fender like it offended him. "Looks like it should have been scrapped when disco was king." "Still runs," Sam replied, quiet but firm like a statement of identity. Something about Sam's indifference sparked irritation. "Hey, I'm talking to you, old man." The biker's voice sharpened. "This ain't a rest home." The others drifted closer. A semicircle formed. Sam could feel the temperature shift, not from the sun, but the tension. Predatory. "I'm just getting gas," he said calmly. "Gas?" One of them mocked. "This piece of junk drinks it like a dinosaur. Probably leaks more than it burns." Another stepped forward and deliberately knocked the gas can from Sam's hand. It clattered to the pavement, fuel splashing across the concrete in a shimmering puddle. Sam bent slowly, methodically, not rising to the bait. But before his fingers could close around the can, a boot connected with his ribs, hard enough to send him sprawling. Concrete met skin, then bone. His hip exploded in pain. Blood began to trickle from his temple. The laughter that followed was loud, cruel, and empty. "Look at him," one snickered. "Can't even take a shove." People noticed. A woman hurried her daughter into a car. A man behind the wheel of a delivery truck stared, then looked away. A teenager lifted his phone and recorded but didn't move. No one moved. Sam didn't get up right away, not from pain, not from weakness, but from the quiet devastation of what had just unfolded. He had fought, bled, and watched friends die for this country, And now he lay in a pool of gas and dust, surrounded by cowards wearing arrogance like armor. Eventually he stood. Blood streaked his face. One of the bikers mock saluted. He didn't respond, just got back in the truck, engine rattling like a growl, and drove away. Their laughter faded behind him, but it stayed in his bones. He drove with one hand against his temple, not caring about the blood. Head wounds bled. It was the ache in his soul that hurt more. At Hank's auto shop, Sam pulled in hoping for something mundane. Maybe just a tune-up. Maybe a distraction. Mike, Hank's son, glanced up from behind the counter, eyes catching the blood but not the man. "You all right, mister?" "Fine," Sam lied. "Need a look at the truck. Making a sound when I hit 40. Mike stepped outside, glanced over the vehicle like a man inspecting a corpse. "We don't really work on trucks this old," he said flatly. "Parts are a pain to find." Sam nodded, more to himself than anyone. He didn't argue. What was the point? Back behind the wheel, he drove aimlessly through the streets of Ridgemont. Memories clawed at him, not nostalgic ones. The other kind, the kind you bury deep, only for them to rise like ghosts in July heat. Laos, 1971. Sweat, fear, and jungle, the stench of rotting foliage and diesel. His team moving silently behind enemy lines, every step a possible death sentence. Carrying his team leader, Private Red Harper, bleeding out from 3 holes in his chest. "I got you, Red," Sam had whispered. "You're going home." He had made it home. Red hadn't. Now, 50 years later, Sam wondered what that promise meant. This was the home he had promised. One where old men were shoved to the pavement and forgotten. A place where people recorded cruelty, but didn't stop it. He parked near the town square and sat on a bench beneath the oak tree, the same one his wife used to love in autumn. From his pocket, he drew a cloth handkerchief and dabbed at the blood on his temple. A young boy with a lemonade stand glanced over, saw the blood, picked up a cup, took a step. His mother's voice cut in sharp. "No, honey. Come here. Now." The boy hesitated, then obeyed. Sam looked away before they could see the pain in his face. A group of teenagers passed, laughing loudly. One pointed. "Zombie Grandpa, bet he knew Lincoln." More laughter. Sam reached into his wallet. A photo. 8 men, arms over shoulders covered in dirt and sweat. Smiling. Real smiles. The kind that only come after you've faced death and lived. He flipped it over. Faded handwriting read, "Whiskey Team, the ones who came back." Behind it, a yellowed business card, numbers, a phrase, "Emergency use only, Special Forces Group 72." He stared at it. That number had never been used. Not even when his wife died, not when his son lost his life in the Gulf. He'd always handled things himself. But today wasn't about pain. It was about something else, something deeper. Betrayal, maybe. Or a loss of faith in the people he had protected. He pulled out his flip phone. Battery still held a charge. Somehow. His fingers shook as he dialed the number. Once, twice, 3 rings. Then, verification code. His breath caught. After a long pause, he said the words that unlocked a sealed door. "Whiskey 72 Delta, Samuel Whitmore." Silence, then a click, another voice, older, sharper. "Sergeant Major Whitmore," the voice said. "Stand by." Another line opened. "Sam Whitmore, it's been a long time." Sam's heart clenched. "Too long, Colonel." "What's your situation?" He didn't explain, just spoke. "I need the team, sir." No questions, no delay, only 3 words. "Help is coming." The park was quiet, but Sam Whitmore no longer felt alone. He stared at the phone in his hand long after the call had ended. Help is coming. Those words echoed in his chest, filling the hollow places left by time and loss. He folded the card, slipped it back into his wallet beside the photo of Whiskey Team, and tucked it into his shirt pocket. The sun began to dip behind the ridgeline. The shadows stretched longer now, and the town bustled with the usual evening apathy. Parents ushered kids into minivans. Teenagers played with their phones. The world went on, unaware that the old man sitting on the bench had just summoned ghosts from a forgotten war. Sam leaned back, eyes closed, as the oak leaves rustled overhead. 35 miles away, in an unmarked hangar nestled on a decommissioned Air Force base, the phone line to Special Forces Group 72 went dead. Inside, a command team that hadn't officially existed since 1983 sprang to life. Colonel Aaron Voss, retired but not inactive, stood from his desk with a sharpness that belied his age. He hadn't worn the uniform in decades, but the code phrase Whiskey 72 Delta reignited something primal. "Get the team," he said, already moving. Operators, all well into their 50s and 60s, began assembling within minutes. They were men with silver hair and scars time hadn't erased. Some limped, others bore the weight of artificial joints. But every one of them answered the call with the urgency of a soldier back on mission. By the time dusk fell fully over Ridgemont, Sam was gone from the bench. He'd driven his truck out to the edge of town and parked beneath the covered bridge where he used to fish with his son. The pain in his hip had worsened, and the bruises from the fall now throbbed with a deep rhythmic ache. But it didn't matter. He waited. And then they came. The silence of the countryside broke not with sirens, but with precision. 3 matte black SUVs rolled through the night like panthers. No markings, no hesitation. They stopped in perfect formation near Sam's truck. The driver's door of the lead vehicle opened, and a man in tactical black stepped out. He moved stiffly, but with purpose. "Sergeant Major Whitmore," he said. Sam nodded. "Colonel." Voss walked over, eyes scanning Sam from head to toe. "Still standing, I see." "Barely," Sam muttered, "but still standing." "You called," Voss said. "And we answer." Doors opened. Men filed out. Some leaned on canes. One wore a brace on his wrist. But all of them stood taller as they approached the old warrior. "Boys," Sam said, emotion catching in his throat. "Didn't expect the cavalry." "Not cavalry," Voss replied. "Family." And family didn't let this kind of thing go unanswered. Sam briefed them quickly. No embellishment, just facts. The bikers, the gas station, the indifference, the humiliation. The older men listened with a cold, growing fury. Not one of them said, "Let it go." Not one of them said, "You're overreacting." They knew. The wound wasn't the fall. It was the betrayal. "Intel?" someone asked. Voss nodded. "We've got their hangout. Old warehouse near the quarry. They call themselves the Red Hounds. Small time. Loud. No real muscle." "They'll learn what real muscle looks like," grunted one of the team. An hour later, the Red Hounds sat around an oil drum fire outside the warehouse. Music thumped from a Bluetooth speaker. The air reeked of beer, fuel, and bravado. Then the music cut off. It was the sudden silence that startled them. From the shadows came men, gray-haired, grim-eyed, moving in perfect synchronicity. No shouting, no posturing, just intent. The Red Hounds scrambled to their feet, but it was already too late. The leader of the bikers, the one who'd pushed Sam, found himself face down in the gravel before he could open his mouth. Another tried to swing a bat, only to have it yanked from his hand and snapped in two. One by one, they were disarmed, disoriented, and dumped in a pile like broken mannequins. They didn't fight long. You don't brawl with wolves when you're just playing at being predators. Sam didn't throw a punch. He didn't have to. He stood beside Colonel Voss, watching as justice, quiet and efficient, was delivered by hands that once held the line between freedom and tyranny. "Should we call the cops?" one of the team asked after the last biker was groaning on the ground. Voss shook his head. "No need. They'll crawl back to their mothers." "And the town?" another said. "The people who watched and did nothing?" "They'll hear," Sam said quietly. "They'll hear soon enough." The next morning, Ridgemont was buzzing. 5 members of the Red Hounds were admitted to the ER overnight. Bruises, sprains, concussions. No charges filed, no police reports, just confusion and rumors. At the gas station, the young cashier now watched every old man who walked in with wide, wary eyes. At the auto shop, Mike greeted Sam when he pulled in with a new reverence. "I found that part," he stammered, "if you still want it fixed." Sam nodded. "That'd be fine." At the park, the lemonade stand was back, and when Sam walked by, the boy came up on his own this time, no permission sought, and handed him a free cup with a smile. "Thanks for being brave," the boy said. Sam took the cup. "Thank you for seeing me." Word spread fast in a small town. People never learned exactly what happened to the Red Hounds. They didn't need to. What they learned, what they remembered, was that the old man in the faded cap was not to be mocked, that he'd been something once, and still was. Sam never saw the team again after that night. They returned to their lives, to their quiet corners of the world, where they blended into the background like old trees, roots deep, branches reaching. But Sam kept the card in his wallet now, and the photo. He still walked with a limp and his hands still trembled, but his eyes, they gleamed. A few weeks later, on Veterans Day, Ridgemont held its first ever tribute at the town square. The mayor gave a speech. A plaque was unveiled. It read, "To Sergeant Major Samuel Whitmore and all those who served and were forgotten, until they reminded us who they are." And beneath it, etched into brass, were 8 names. Whiskey Team, the ones who came back.